Excuse me for my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Welcome to the show. I'm Andrew Zimmel, your host as always. If you haven't checked out our breakdown of Downhill, the new Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus film that came out, we broke that one down for you. Look, was it great? No, but the podcast sounds pretty good, so you should go check it out. Also, in case you've missed it or you haven't heard, I did a guest spot on another podcast, The San Mo Show, hosted by a good friend of mine, Cleveland. We talk about a bunch of different topics. If you really enjoy this podcast, if you've listened to this podcast in the past and you want to hear a little bit more, maybe you want to hear an hour's worth of content, you're this 20, 30-minute podcast isn't getting enough for you, you got an itch, you're going somewhere this weekend, check it out. It should be up on my social media pages whenever it goes out. I don't have any control over that, but when it comes out, I will make sure you guys can get your hands on it. So, let's talk baseball. This podcast, we're breaking down the MVP odds, who we like in the National and American League, early on. Who we're going to put some future money on going forward. So, we're going to do the American League MVP, the National League MVP, and then a couple of World Series picks. Who do we like? Who's getting a lot of money sent their way? And what we think about those teams that are getting money sent their way. So, let's go to the American League MVP odds. These are in order, okay? I'm going to tell you when people are tied for odds. There's a couple guys who have very similar odds early in the season. So Mike Trout is far and away the favorite in the American League. He is 1 in 100 odds. Aaron Judge, plus 1,200. Torres, plus 1,200. Bregman's plus 1,600. Lindor's plus 1,600. Ohtani's plus 1,800. LeMahieu's plus 2,500. Matt Chapman is plus 2,500. Anthony Rendon is plus 3,000. So, what do we like? What are some odds that we see right off the bat? Well, first off, right off the bat, I'm not in love with the Angels having 3 guys this high. Also, if you look, the Yankees have 4 guys early in. What does that tell me? That tells me that there are 2 teams, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, who are going to get a lot of money sent their way. A lot of people are going to be putting money on the Yankees players. Stan's already out. He already hurt his calf, so he isn't going to get as much money sent his way, especially if he misses some significant time early in the season. Now, what does that mean? When a guy misses time early, that doesn't necessarily kick him out of the MVP race. If you miss 20, 30 games to start the season, you end up playing 130 games, and you put up very good numbers. You bat somewhere between 280 and 310. You put up anywhere between 35 and 45 home runs and maybe 100 RBIs. Hell yeah, you're going to be an MVP candidate, especially if the Yankees look the way the Yankees might look this season. You're going to get a lot of eyes sent your way. But Stan getting hurt early puts a lot of more pressure on Aaron Judge, puts a lot more pressure on Torres, puts a lot more pressure on LeMahieu. And the bullpen, already suspect. And, of course, with Severino going down, the only way the Yankees are going to win games early on is with the bats. So if guys like Judge, if guys like Torres, guys like LeMahieu end up having very good seasons this year, I could see any one of those guys winning MVP. The other thing I noticed is that when you got a guy like Trout, a guy like Anthony Rendon, a guy like Ohtani is a special guy because he's going to get MVP votes because if he pitches well, say he has a sub-2.5 ERA, and then hits anywhere between 25 and 30 home runs, drives in a couple RBIs, and he looks like the type of dude that a lot of baseball scouts and a lot of baseball guys think he could be. People have been quoted saying that he's faster than Trout while running the bases. That's coming out of spring training already. So you got teams, the Angels, the Yankees, who are going to be splitting some votes, I think, for MVP. And that's why I like Alex Bregman. Because while I think the Astros might struggle early, and we've already seen Bregman get a little bit of high heat in these spring training games, I like Bregman's MVP odds for the reason that the Astros are going to win a bunch of games. if the Astros continue to play the way that I think that they could play, I think that they cheated, yes. But do I think that it was enough for them to win a World Series? Possibly. But I don't think Alex Bregman's numbers were inflated as much as people might want you to believe. Guys like Jose Altuve, guys like Bregman, guys like Springer, they're special guys. Now, I don't think Correa is that great of a guy. I don't love the way that he talks to the media. I think that his numbers might be a little bit more inflated than the rest of those guys. But I've seen Altuve, I've seen Bregman, I've seen them hit without the help of advanced scouting or cheating. I've seen it. So that tells me that they're naturally talented guys. Bregman is by far and away the one dude who I think gets the least amount of respect on this Astros team. When you talk about great Astros, you talk about Altuve, you talk about Verlander, Garrett Cole was mentioned before he went to the Yankees. Greinke's going to get a lot more eyes on him this season as being the number 2. People forget about Alex Bregman, I think. And I think a lot of people are not going to forget about him this year when he puts up MVP-type numbers. The only thing holding him back is, of course, the Astros scandal. If people think early on that, hey, we don't want to vote for this guy, if baseball writers around the country say no Astro is going to be an all-star starter, we're not going to vote for any all-star or Astros players to win any of the end-of-the-year awards from here on out, I wouldn't be shocked. It would not surprise me. Baseball writers are very vindictive. They hold a grudge. I get it. But for plus 1,600, you throw down a $10, $15, $50 bet for a Bregman to win it, I would not be surprised. Like I said, I'm looking at a guy like Judge, looking at a guy like Trout. They're going to have a lot of pressure on him. I don't care what you say about Mike Trout. He's got to have pressure on him now as a multiple-time MVP who hasn't won anything. He's got to have some pressure on him. He just signed a big contract. He needs to show up and show out. He needs to make some moves. He needs to make something happen this season for the Angels. Otherwise, I think people are going to start looking over him, especially when the Dodgers play in the same area, same regional area as the Angels and have some of the most talented players in baseball. So I think Trout's going to have a little bit of pressure on him. Judge, I think, is going to have a little bit of pressure on him. And, of course, they're going to have other guys that are going to take some of their first-place votes. So, Bregman, while he has the 4th best odds, he's tied with Lindor for the 4th best odds to win the MVP. I like his odds. Let's talk about Lindor just for a quick second. Lindor is one of the most special shortstops in the game. And we're going to get into it when we talk about the American League Central Division and why I like Lindor and what I think the Indians can do with him this season. But I was talking to somebody the other day about how when we're breaking down these all-time teams, because we were talking about the all-time Red Sox team and the all-time Yankees team and the all-decade team, and because I put a Cano over Altuve, I was getting a lot of pushback, and I still am. That podcast is up. It came out on Monday. You can go back and listen to it. But I was talking about how the middle of the infield, if you can hit for power, I have a respect for you because it's real hard to find a power-hitting second baseman, a power-hitting shortstop. Lindor can hit for average, can hit for power. He's got an unlimited range. I don't want to compare him to Nomar. I don't want to compare him to Jeter. I don't want to compare him to some of these great shortstops we had in the early 2000s. But when we do this all-decade team for the 2020s, I will say Lindor feels like the type of guy who's going to get that nod. He might have got the nod in the 2010s for a lot of guys. I know a lot of people had Lindor as their all-decade shortstop. I had Tulowitzki. I think it's a more of a disagreement on the style of play, but I think Lindor is going to be that type of guy for the next 5 to 6 years. I think he can be and play at that level. So I don't think he is the guy that wins the MVP this season, but when we talk about the team of the year, when we break down the best position by position in the American League, he's by far going to be, I think, the best shortstop this season. So Bregman, plus 1,600, I like those odds. Let's go to the National League MVP odds. So Mookie Betts has just a little bit worse odds than Trout, but he still leads the National League. Even though he has just joined the LA Dodgers, he is plus 350. Accord Jr. is plus 400. Yelich is plus 700. Bellinger is plus 900. Soto is plus 1,000. Tatis Jr. is plus 1,000. Ariando is plus 1,400. Harper's plus 1,400. Benez is 2,500. So let's go through it. Betts, another guy that has a lot of pressure on him. I get it. New team. You got a little bit of relief now that you're going to get paid. The Dodgers are going to give him a big payday. But we saw this happen with Harper. We saw this happen with a lot of guys who get paid big money. It doesn't work, right? You come a little bit lackadaisical early on. Now, Betts doesn't remind me of Harper in the way that he showboats, in the way that he doesn't run out singles. If it's hitting the infield, you might as well just send Harper back to the bench because he's not going to run it out. Betts isn't like that. Betts is an upstanding guy. He plays the game the right way. It's a lot of baseball cliches, but I believe him. That this guy is a hard-hitting and it seems like a good guy, a guy that really likes the game. Plus 350 to me feels about right. I feel like he should be in that 350 to 500 range for odds. I don't love that he is a higher than Acura Jr., who, with the Braves this year, I think is going to have a very special year. Again, those podcasts are going to come out in the next couple of weeks, Mondays and Fridays. Look for the baseball content. But I think the Braves are going to have a very good year this year, too. I think the Dodgers are going to have a really good year this year, too. But Bellinger and Betts are going to split MVP votes. It's going to go down to Betts as the new guy on the block. Do we give the MVP to the guy who won in 2018 in the American League? Is he going to be big enough? Is he going to have a big enough bat, a big enough impact on the Dodgers, a team that has played in 2 World Series in the last 3 years? They're trying to get back to the Fall Classic. Is he going to have a big enough impact in the regular season, not only to influence their 100-win season potentially, but also kind of take this team over? Bellinger right now feels like the captain of the team. I think he is the captain of the team. I think when you saw it this offseason, that when reporters want to talk about the Dodgers, when they want to talk about the Dodgers getting robbed in the World Series, they went to Bellinger's locker. They asked him, what do you think about this Astros scandal? Okay, so I think that he is the front man. I think he's the captain of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So when it comes down to MVP voting, let's say the Dodgers win anywhere between 95 and 100 games. Let's say the Dodgers are that team to kind of beat in the National League West, which I think a lot of us agree. I think they are. How are we going to split some votes? How are we going to split some hairs? That's why my MVP is Yelich. I'm going to tell you why. The Brewers aren't going to win the National League Central. I'm going to slip that in here right now. I don't like their odds to win it. We're going to get into it in a couple weeks, but I don't think that they're the team that's going to come out of the National League. In fact, I'd even go as far to say as they're not going to make the playoffs at all. But why has that stopped baseball writers in the past for voting for MVP? Look, Trout hasn't made the playoffs in almost 5 years, half a decade. He hasn't been in the playoffs. And he's got 3 of those guys. He's got 3 of those trophies hanging up on his mantle. Yelich hits home runs. He drives in runs. He's a smiling face. And if it wasn't for Betts, I'd say that he was the face of the National League. I'd say that he's the guy that when we talk about the National League, he's the guy that you're going to put on the ticket for the All-Star game. This dude got hurt at the end of the season and still ended up hitting 30-plus home runs. I like Yelich's chances. He's an MVP before. I think MVP voters, unlike basketball, which goes by we want to give it to a different guy every year. There's a lot of storylines that go into it. Unlike basketball and unlike football that votes on storylines, baseball writers, for the most part, vote on stats. They vote on statistics. They vote on what you've done. Is his WAR better? Is it going to be better than Betts' Probably not. Is it going to be better than some of these other guys on the list? Maybe. But I think Yelich at plus 700, not only is it a safe bet, because he has the 3rd best odds, but he also gives me the vibes that it's going to get done this year. That if he can stay on the field, he can hit anywhere between 35 and 50 home runs. It's going to be real hard, I think, for writers to not vote for a guy like Yelich who's going to have a big, big bat, who's going to hit a bunch of home runs, who's going to be fun to watch, who's going to bring people to the ballpark. I like Yelich at plus 700, but let's, for the sake of it, go through the rest of them. Ariando in Colorado at plus 1,400 feels like a stretch. Feels like a guy who might not be in Colorado at the end of the season, might not be at Colorado by the trade deadline. I could totally see the Rockies moving off of him, especially if they have a start very rough. Now, who has assets to trade for an all-decade third baseman? I don't know. It's too early to tell who's going to be making a move like that. I can assume a team like Philadelphia might be trying to make a move, go get a third baseman. I can see a team like the Mets going out and potentially moving some players around, moving some pieces, and getting a guy like that. But outside of those two teams, again, both those National League teams, it's going to be real hard for me to see him moving to the American League. I don't know what teams have the pieces to move for him. So the odds that he wins the MVP this year, that makes me worrisome. Harper is due for a bounce-back year, but an MVP season doesn't feel in the cards for him. I think that he'll play better in his second year in Philadelphia, but again, I don't know how I feel about giving him my money to win the MVP. That's why I'm sticking with Yelich. And if not Yelich, I could get behind a Kerr at plus 400, but you're trying to make some money here, plus 700. I think they have similar odds. I think they have a similar chance to win, but I'm not in love with it. All right, let's move over to the American League the American League Championship Series. To win the American League, I got Yankees over Twins. So, Twins have plus 2,000 odds to win the whole thing. They've got one of the lesser odds in the American League. When you talk about the teams with the best odds to win the World Series, the Yankees are plus 375. The Twins are plus 2,000. The Astros are plus 650, so they have the second best odds in the American League. The Rays are plus 2,200. So, why do I like the Yankees over the Twins? Well, first off, the Twins have not beat the Yankees in the playoff series, and I want to say almost 2 decades. But also, they've lost 16 consecutive games to the New York Yankees in the playoffs. What makes this year different? What makes this year different? You're going to get it on Monday when I talk about the American League East. You're going to get it Friday when I talk about the American League Central Division. And we'll get into both those teams. But right now, when we're just looking at the playoff matchup, and I get it, it's February, it's a far way away to be talking about all the way in September and October what we can expect. But the Yankees look like the team to beat in the American League. I like what they've done with the pitching rotation, even though Severino's out. Garrett Cole's going to have a lot more pressure on him, but I think he can handle it. He was the best pitcher in baseball last season. So I think that he'll be fine. The bullpen needs a little bit of work. I think they're going to pull some guys up early and test them out. I think that that's what Aaron Boone's going to do, the Yankees manager. I could see him playing with that bullpen a little bit. But if Garrett Cole goes out there and wins anywhere between 10 to 20 games, 10 to 15 games, I think that he is, or 50, I should say 15 to 20. That's where the bar should be set for him. 15 and 20 games, I like those chances for him. The Twins, they got the big bats, but I like the Yankees coming out of the American League. In the National League, the Dodgers over the Braves. Braves are plus 1,400. Dodgers are plus 430 to win the whole thing. But then you go through the odds to win the World Series. Teams like the Nationals are plus 1,700. The Mets are 2,100. The Phillies are 2,100. The Cardinals are 2,200. So it really is top heavy. The Dodgers, Vegas feels like the Dodgers are the best team in the National League. Now, we're going to get into it in a second further in the podcast when we talk about what we can expect from Dave Roberts. I'm going to throw a big future bet at you in a second. But I like the Dodgers in the World Series as well over the Braves. Now, the Braves have a very good team. I think the Braves are going to be a team that's going to run away with the National League East. I don't think that there's a lot of teams in that division that are going to be able to compete with them. And again, give it a couple weeks, guys. We'll get into it in more depth. But right now, the Yankees over the Dodgers. It's plus 375 over plus 430. The Yankees have the best odds. They're my favorite team. They're the team that I think a lot of people are betting on right now. They feel like the safe bet to win. Here's some teams that I would go with. If you're not a Yankees fan and you're never a Yankees fan, you're never going to go with it. Go with the Rays. That would be my sleeper. The Rays in the American League, they are the team that is going to, I think, shake some things up. Let me read you a stat real quick. 7 teams have won the World Series as a wild card since the introduction of the wild card in 1995. The team with the best record in baseball has been the world champion, has hosted the Commissioner's Trophy 6 times during that stretch. So the wild card teams in the last 20-plus years have now won the World Series more often than the team with the best record, thanks to the Nationals last year who went on that incredible run. What does that mean? That means that if the Yankees and the Dodgers are the 2 teams with the best record, maybe don't put your money on those 2 teams going forward. Now, I still like the Yankees. I still think they're going to win the most games in the American League. If not them, the Astros. I still like the Dodgers, who feel like the team to beat. If there hasn't been a chip on their shoulder to this point, they need to have a chip on their shoulder now. The locker room feels like they've been robbed of a World Series. So it would not shock me, it would not surprise me one bit if they were the team to come out of the National League. All that said, the Braves are a good pick too, coming out of the National League East. And of course, you got to be thinking about the Cardinals in the National League Central Division, who, coming out of, I think, one of the most competitive divisions in the sport, with the Cubs and the Brewers knocking them around all season, they're going to be battle-tested, I think, coming into the playoffs. So the Cardinals, the Braves, the Dodgers would be my safe, or the Braves, of course, would be my sleeper in the National League. The Cardinals would be my deep sleeper, and the Dodgers are, of course, the favorite to come out of the National League. Going on to the big future prop bet. This is the one that, if you can find it anywhere, you need to put money down on it, no matter what the odds are. Throw down anywhere between $100 and $1,000. That's how much I am confident that this will happen. If Mookie Betts is going to get a long-term deal with the Dodgers, if Mookie Betts is getting a long-term deal with the Dodgers, then Dave Roberts is going to get fired pretty soon after that. Because Dave Roberts, to me, his incompetence has cost the Dodgers not one, not two, but 3 National League World Series. They would be a 3-time champion right now if it wasn't for Dave Roberts. That is why I think if Mookie gets a long-term contract from the Dodgers, you need to bet on Dave Roberts not being the manager of the Dodgers. At the All-Star break, I would not be shocked if they have a new manager. That's my hot take. Monday, we're going to talk about the American League East. I'm going to tell you all about the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. What does the Mookie trade mean for the Red Sox? Why do the Yankees need to worry about Severino's health? And what can the Blue Jays do to be competitive? And, of course, why are the Rays the sleeper to win the American League East? All that and more, of course, on Monday. Check out all the podcasts we did this week. Alexander Haynes did an excellent job breaking down the coronavirus for us, talking to us about the Democratic primaries. It's Super Tuesday, so if you're not registered to vote, I don't know what you're doing. You're really messing up the whole democratic process. If you're not registered to vote in the primaries on Tuesday, you need to go figure that out. Have a good weekend. I will talk to you guys again on Monday when we will be talking about what all happened this weekend. I will see you then.